It's been just over 2 weeks, and something significant has changed on the battlefield in southeastern Ukraine. After months of grinding positional warfare, Ukrainian forces have launched a renewed counter-pressure campaign that's now exposing deeper structural problems inside Russia's frontline command system. Reports emerging from areas near Dobropilya suggest that Russian assault units are struggling to coordinate basic offensive maneuvers, with some units advancing across open terrain in broad daylight without proper reconnaissance support. In one recent incident, a Russian assault group reportedly attempted to push toward Ukrainian defensive positions using a single transport vehicle along a highway north of the town. Ukrainian drone operators quickly identified the movement from above. Within minutes, a strike drone disabled the vehicle, forcing troops to scatter into nearby open ground where artillery units engaged shortly afterward. Military observers say this kind of exposed movement is becoming increasingly common, and the reason may not be tactical inexperience alone. Instead, analysts are pointing toward a deeper issue: communications breakdowns across sections of the Russian frontline. Earlier this month, Ukrainian technical teams, working alongside satellite infrastructure from SpaceX, implemented expanded access control measures across battlefield-registered satellite terminals. These changes were designed to prevent unauthorized use, but they may also have limited connectivity previously relied upon by Russian units operating in contested zones. Without stable satellite links, frontline coordination becomes dramatically harder. Drone operators may capture surveillance footage, but without a secure relay system, transmitting that data to infantry or artillery units in real time becomes inconsistent or delayed. And timing is everything in modern warfare. At nearly the same time, Russia's efforts to tighten domestic control over encrypted messaging services, including operational slowdowns affecting Telegram, appear to have had unintended battlefield consequences. For years, Russian volunteer units and logistics teams used Telegram-based channels to share maps, equipment requests, reconnaissance images, and movement updates. While never designed as a military command platform, the app became a widely used field-level coordination tool. Now, with those channels facing disruptions, some Russian units may be operating with reduced access to logistical data or delayed situational awareness. That can mean the difference between a coordinated assault and a convoy driving directly into a surveillance zone. Ukrainian commanders appear to be capitalizing on this uncertainty. Small-scale counterattacks across the Dnipropetrovsk-Zaporizhzhia boundary areas are targeting weak points in Russian defensive lines, especially sectors that have recently undergone troop redeployment. Because here's the second challenge Russia is facing right now: manpower distribution. While the overall number of Russian troops in theater remains substantial, maintaining offensive pressure across a front line stretching hundreds of kilometers requires constant reinforcement and rotation. As reserves are shifted toward priority sectors, other zones inevitably thin out. Ukraine's strategy appears to be focused on identifying these temporary vulnerabilities, then applying rapid drone-guided artillery strikes before reinforcements can arrive. According to statements from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, recent operations have restored control over multiple settlements and reclaimed more than 300 square kilometers of territory across southern operational zones. Independent verification of these claims is ongoing, but satellite imagery analysis does indicate increased Ukrainian maneuver activity in previously contested gray areas, regions where neither side maintained consistent control. Drone warfare is playing a central role in these developments. Over the past year, Ukraine has significantly expanded its unmanned systems forces, integrating reconnaissance drones with strike platforms capable of engaging moving targets in real time. Today, defense analysts estimate that a majority of Ukrainian tactical strike operations involve unmanned aerial systems in some capacity. These drones patrol contested zones continuously, identifying isolated units or supply convoys. Once located, strike assets can be deployed within minutes, often before ground forces even realize they've been detected. In environments where communications are degraded, that kind of surveillance advantage becomes exponentially more powerful. Russian forces have begun experimenting with alternative communication systems to compensate. One approach reportedly involves deploying high-altitude balloon platforms capable of carrying relay equipment into the lower stratosphere, extending localized connectivity across targeted sectors. The concept itself isn't new, but scaling such systems into a reliable frontline network presents logistical challenges, including deployment time, cost, and vulnerability to aerial interception. Unlike satellite constellations, balloon-based relays offer only temporary coverage and must be repositioned regularly. That creates connectivity gaps, especially in fast-moving operational environments. Meanwhile, Ukrainian pressure continues. Across southeastern axis, coordinated infantry drone teams are probing Russian defensive lines, seeking to disrupt supply routes and isolate forward units from centralized command structures. Each successful strike against logistics hubs or transport corridors forces additional redeployment decisions inside the Russian command hierarchy, and each redeployment opens new gaps elsewhere. In the northeast, attention is also turning toward Kupiansk, a city that's changed hands before during the conflict. While Russian officials have previously claimed control over the area, recent assessments suggest only limited garrison-level presence in certain districts. That disconnect between reported control and actual force posture is becoming a growing concern among independent military analysts. Because on a modern battlefield, perception matters but coordination matters more. And coordination depends on communication. If Ukrainian forces can continue to exploit disruptions across Russian relay systems, whether through satellite denial, messaging slowdowns, or electronic warfare, they may be able to maintain operational momentum even without large-scale, mechanized breakthroughs. For now, the southeastern theater remains highly fluid. What began as localized counterpressure is evolving into a broader campaign aimed at reshaping frontline geometry before the next major operational phase begins later this year. Whether that momentum can be sustained will depend on logistics, reinforcement cycles, and the continued effectiveness of Ukraine's drone-centric engagement model. But one thing is becoming increasingly clear. In 21st century warfare, information isn't just power, it's survival. Stay tuned for more real-time global defense updates. And now, that information war is beginning to reshape the physical battlefield itself. Because when communication lines weaken, decision-making slows down. And when decisions slow down in an active combat zone, opportunities open up for the other side. In recent days, Ukrainian forward reconnaissance teams have reportedly increased drone patrol frequency across contested sectors stretching toward the Zaporizhzhia operational axis. These patrols are not always followed by immediate attacks. Instead, they appear to be mapping defensive patterns, identifying which Russian positions rotate regularly, which remain static, and which are being held by recently redeployed reserve units. That matters, because reserve units are often less familiar with terrain, less integrated into command networks, and more dependent on centralized communication for coordination. In an environment where relay systems are already strained, these formations may be operating with limited real-time updates about enemy movements. That creates fragmentation along the line, and fragmentation leads to isolated positions. Several Ukrainian assault brigades are now believed to be conducting what analysts describe as pressure point operations. Small, targeted engagements designed not to break the entire front line at once, but to gradually stretch it beyond its ability to self-reinforce. Rather than committing to one large breakthrough attempt, Ukrainian units appear to be forcing multiple localized responses across different sectors simultaneously. Each response requires movement. Each movement requires coordination. And coordination requires communication, which brings us back to the core issue facing Russian command structures right now. Without consistent relay between drone surveillance teams and artillery batteries, identifying Ukrainian maneuver elements becomes significantly harder. Ground observers may detect movement, but without confirmation from aerial platforms, artillery fire risks becoming inaccurate or delayed. Meanwhile, Ukrainian units equipped with integrated drone support can observe, confirm, and engage in near real time. That asymmetry changes the tempo of combat. In traditional engagements, advancing forces typically face higher risk, moving into prepared defensive zones under observation. But when defenders lack reliable situational readiness of a defensive unit, multiply that across dozens of positions, and the cumulative effect becomes significant. At the same time, Ukrainian engineering teams are believed to be reinforcing newly reclaimed zones with mobile air defense assets protecting advancing infantry from retaliatory drone strikes. This layered approach, reconnaissance, engagement, reinforcement, is designed to create what military planners call rolling denial zones, areas where any attempted movement by opposing awareness, advancing units may actually gain the initiative. And that's exactly what appears to be happening across segments of the southeastern front. Logistical corridors leading toward forward Russian positions are reportedly under increased drone surveillance. Supply vehicles attempting nighttime movement have faced detection by thermal imaging systems mounted on unmanned platforms. Even minor disruptions, a delayed ammunition delivery, a missed rotation window, can reduce the operational